Has the world lost its ability to think objectively? Well, subjectively, it seems that way. Objectively, we have some compelling evidence, especially in the US. Unfortunately, most of the data I found focuses heavily on politics, but we can make some assumptions that this translates to other disciplines as well. First, we have this data from the Pew Research Center, which has an all-sides rating of center that shows how Democrat and Republican voters have both moved further away from the center over the years. People are locked in their echo chambers that have been created on the internet, and that is driving people further away from seeking their own viewpoint, and instead being spoon-fed opinions from internet talking heads. Then we have this research from NBER that rates effective polarization trends in many countries, with the US being one that is most rapidly becoming polarized, and many other countries also exhibiting an increase in polarization over time. For a non-political look at this question, let's look at how Americans view science. The scientific method relies heavily on objectivity, so if people distrust science, one could reason people are losing objective reasoning. Here is more research from Pew in 2014 that compares Americans' views on science now compared to 5 years prior. In 2009, 83% of citizens have a favorable view of science and 5% an unfavorable view, compared to 2014 in which 79% had a favorable view of science, with 10% having an unfavorable view. Keep in mind this is from 2014. It is quite possible that the trend towards a more unfavorable view of science has changed these numbers even more today. To be fair, another poll from Pew has a different look, showing a very stable view of science over time, but it's from 2018 and doesn't include the recent years where there has been a strong anti-science push from the anti-vax crowd. But then there's this poll from the American Sociological Association, which shows declining trust in science amongst conservatives and moderates, with liberals remaining steady. But again, it is a bit old now, from 1974 to 2010. It'll be interesting to look at more studies that reference current times, but I think there is a reasonable chance we see continued evidence of a further distrust of science in the US. I think this is compelling evidence that at least in the US, people are not thinking as objectively or with an open mind as they have historically. There are more and more people living in echo chambers and only seeking to find information that confirms their current views. So with that in mind, how did we get to this point? Well, clearly the internet has had a big role. The Google, YouTube, and Facebook algorithms all have a tendency to present information to the user that will be consumed. This keeps a steady diet of the exact same viewpoints being spoon-fed to the masses. And even without algorithm help, people seek out information that confirms their viewpoints and do not seek out information that disproves their viewpoints. A quote that has stuck with me for many years is one from my favorite YouTuber, Veritasium. That quote is, "If you think something is true, you should try to disprove it."
If you think that something is true, you should try as hard as you can to disprove it.
This idea is extremely well stated, and I have taken this view to heart in my life. If only we could get the masses to take this viewpoint. Even going back before the internet was mainstream, TV and mainstream news had a major shift that you could potentially trace all the way back to 1968 with a political debate between Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley. It was a left versus right debate between two people who had a severe dislike of each other. The debate turned personal quickly, and it was a huge win for ABC. ABC was a distant third in ratings behind CBS and NBC, but this debate catapulted them up the ratings. It was not long before the other networks who had initially scoffed at the idea adopted it. Humans unfortunately do love to watch conflict. Once this becomes quantified through ratings in the news industry, it became mainstream. There's a good documentary on this called Best of Enemies. I highly recommend watching it. From there, we got this.
Because I don't get the tea off of you. Give me one damn program instead of coming to that. Not entitlement, one program. What do you want to yell at?
And then eventually, we fast forward to today, and TV is losing its dominance, and once powerful TV personalities are losing their audience to internet personalities, who by many respects are even more extreme. The question now is, where do we go from here? How do we convince people to think for themselves and not be spoon-fed ideas? How do we get people to challenge their own assumptions and to seek out information that does not confirm their biases? Well, the truth is, I don't know, but that is one of the goals of this channel, to try and find ways to get more objective activity injected back into society as a whole. It is not going to be an easy task, but even if I can have a small impact, I will treat that as a win. I'm planning to take objective deep dives on many topics, attempting to use facts as much as possible to seek out what the actual truth is. Now, in many cases, it is impossible to be 100% sure of what the truth is. In some cases, there's a lack of objective data available. But even with that, we can at least determine what the most likely truth is. And if anything, at least spur some discussion as to what might be the next steps to convincing others to think objectively. It is going to be a difficult task, and frankly, there are many people that are beyond change at this point. But each person that changes their thought process to be more open-minded or more objective can put pressure on others to adopt the same thought process. Which brings me to another point I want to make. What is objectivity? What does it mean to have an open mind? Are open-mindedness and objectivity the same thing? Is it possible to be too open-minded? Well, these are all good questions, and in future videos we'll be taking deep looks at many of them. But let's start in this video by defining what it means to have an open mind. An open mind to me just means someone is willing to change their mind based on new information being presented to them. What does it mean? What it does not mean is if someone disagrees with your point of view that they have a closed mind. This is often a fallacy that I see. Someone with a view that is very non-objective attacks someone as having a closed mind for not believing in said view. This YouTube video explains it extremely well. I will end with two quotes that I think very accurately describe the times we live in. If you have gotten this far, I would absolutely encourage you to help me by liking, subscribing, and commenting. I know that everyone asks for these things in every video, but this is a brand new channel, and a subscribe would be a massive help for me. If you believe in objective reasoning, please help me out. Finally, have a good day. Remember to spread objectivity, positivity, and love throughout the world, and we'll see you in the next video.